They called it a family decision, but it felt more like a sentencing. My children, a brilliant financial planner and a ruthless social climber, calculated my life down to the last dollar. After selling my home and my memories, they shipped me off to a retirement facility. Their parting gift was a cruel joke, the deed to a worthless patch of dirt they didn't want to pay taxes on. But what my brilliant son failed to calculate was the $2 billion mineral deposit sleeping just beneath that dirt. He called it a worthless deed. I called it the key to my revenge. Before we continue, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and let us know in the comments where you're listening from. Your support helps us bring stories like this to you. The meeting, as Marcus had so clinically called it, took place on a Tuesday. I remember the sunlight slanting through the bay window, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air. I'd just served them tea in the porcelain cups my late husband, Arthur, and I had bought in England on our 25th anniversary. Chloe held hers with her pinky finger extended, her eyes scanning the room not with nostalgia, but with the cold appraisal of an auctioneer. Marcus, ever the pragmatist, had a leather-bound portfolio open on his lap, its crisp pages filled with charts and figures that were meant to represent the final chapter of my life. "Mom," Marcus began, his voice devoid of the warmth it once held, "we need to talk about the future. Your future." I smiled, a genuine, unsuspecting smile. "Oh, are we planning a trick? I was just thinking, Arthur always wanted to see the Grand Canyon in the autumn." Chloe set her cup down with a delicate clank that sounded like a closing gate. "Mother, please, be serious. This is important." She gestured vaguely around the room, at the worn armchair where Arthur used to read the paper, at the gallery wall of family photos. "This house, it's just too much for you. The upkeep, the stairs, we worry." Worry. It was a word they used like a weapon, cloaked in the guise of concern, but wielded to get what they wanted. I was 78, not senile. My mind was as sharp as the day I retired from teaching. But my children saw only a liability, a loose end in their perfectly manicured lives. "I'm perfectly fine, darlings," I said, my voice firmer than they expected. "This house is my home. Your father and I built it." "And it's a wonderful asset," Marcus interrupted smoothly, flipping a page in his portfolio. "The property value in this neighborhood has skyrocketed. We've had an appraisal done. Selling now would be the most financially prudent decision. It would secure your long-term care fund." There it was, the language of the boardroom applied to a human heart. Asset, financially prudent, long-term care fund. He laid out the glossy brochure then for a place called Golden Meadows Senior Living. It looked less like a home and more like a luxury prison. "We've already put down a deposit on a lovely suite for you," Chloe chimed in, her voice bright and brittle. "It has a view of the courtyard, and you won't have to worry about a thing." The air in the room grew thin, heavy with their unyielding intentions. I looked from my son's cold, determined face to my daughter's strained society smile, and I saw two strangers. The children I had raised, the ones I had rocked to sleep, were gone. "You're selling my home," I whispered, the reality crashing down on me. "And putting me away?" "We are not putting you away, Mother," Chloe sighed, the picture of theatrical patience. "We are ensuring your safety. This is what's best for you. We've even hired a service to help sort through everything here. They'll handle the estate sale." The finality of it stole my breath. An estate sale? Strangers pawing through my life, putting price tags on Arthur's books, on the very teacups we were drinking from? My life liquidated. The last piece of business was delivered by Marcus. He slid a single folded document across the coffee table. It was thick, yellowed with age. He said, "There is one thing the estate agents can't deal with. Dad's old property. The 5 acres out in Oakley County. It's worthless. Completely barren. No water rights. Zoned for nothing." "So," he pushed it closer to me, "we've had the deed signed over to you. A little gift. You can enjoy the memories." The cruelty of that gesture was breathtaking. I didn't argue. I simply nodded, my silence their victory. As they left, ready to return to their busy, important lives, I sank into Arthur's armchair, the house groaning around me with the weight of 50 years. I picked up the deed, their final insult, and as my fingers traced the folded edges, I felt something else tucked inside. It was a small sealed envelope in my husband's familiar handwriting. My heart hammered against my ribs as I opened it. Inside was not a letter, but a small, ornate, old-fashioned key and a single cryptic sentence on a slip of paper. "My dearest Elara, the earth remembers what we forget. Your name is the key." Arthur's note felt like a ghost's whisper in the deafening silence of my condemned home. Your name is the key. What could it possibly mean? I clutched the small brass key in my hand, its intricate design a puzzle I couldn't solve. It didn't match any lock I knew. For 2 days, this mystery was my only comfort as the dismantling of my life began. The service Chloe had hired, Legacy Transitions, descended upon my home like polite vultures. Their leader, a woman named Brenda with a clipboard and a permanently sympathetic yet firm expression, moved through my rooms with a terrifying efficiency. They were the undertakers of memory, tagging each of my possessions with little yellow stickers. A chirp for the grandfather clock from our honeymoon. A chirp for the dining table. Chirp, chirp, chirp. The sound of my life being priced for strangers. I was instructed to stay in my bedroom and select the items for my single, medium-sized box. I felt like a phantom, watching as a young man picked up the lopsided clay bowl Marcus had made me in 1st grade. "What do you think, Bren? $5?" he called. "It's signed," Brenda said, turning it over. "To Mommy from Marcus, age 6. Make it 10. Vintage kid art has a certain kitsch appeal." My hand flew to my mouth. The magic bowl, meant to hold all my happiness, was now just kitsch. I saw the silver-framed photo of Chloe in her ballet tutu, a yellow sticker on the corner, $8. Each item was a phantom limb, a piece of my history that no longer belonged to me. That afternoon, I called Chloe. "They're putting stickers on everything, Chloe," I said, my voice trembling. "On your recital photo." A long, weary sigh came through the phone. "Mother, we've been over this. It has to be done. It's just stuff. You have to be practical. Think of this as a fresh start." A fresh start, as if my life was nothing but clutter. "It's not just stuff to me," I whispered. "I can't do this right now," she said impatiently. "I have to go." The line went dead. Minutes later, a text from Marcus arrived. "Brenda says pre-sale estimates are strong. Proceeds should cover the Golden Meadows entry fee and the 1st year of expenses. Good work, Mom." He had ended it with a thumbs-up emoji. My existence liquidated and approved with a cartoon hand gesture. Later that day, Brenda, the head of the team, found me staring at the blank wall where our family photos used to hang. She was sorting a box of old paperwork from Arthur's desk, things deemed to have no monetary value. "It's a difficult process, I know," she said, her professional sympathy on full display. She handed me the deed to the Oakley property, which had been in the box. "Don't forget this." As I took it, her eyes lingered on the document. Oakley County, she mused, tapping her chin. Funny you should have land out there. It's a hot topic lately among some of our wealthier clients. I looked at her, my curiosity piqued. Hot topic? Why? She shrugged, already turning back to her work, her professional mask slipping back into place. Oh, you know, corporate rumors. Some big tech company is sniffing around for a major expansion. They're being very quiet about it, but they're paying fortunes for land. Probably nothing, but still. She packed the last of the papers, and her team left for the day. I stood alone in the hollowed-out shill of my living room. A tech company paying fortunes for land. I looked down at the deed in my hand, then at the mysterious key from Arthur. The key to what? Suddenly, my planned pilgrimage to the land felt like something more. It wasn't just a journey into the past to say goodbye. It was a journey into a mystery. And I had a chilling thought. Did my children, in their rush to get rid of the worthless land, know more than they were letting on? The drive to Oakley County was charged with a new, nervous energy. Brenda's words about a tech company and Arthur's cryptic note turned the journey into an investigation. The small brass key was in my pocket, its weight a constant reminder of the puzzle I needed to solve. I parked where the access road dissolved into weeds and stepped out into the clean, mineral-scented air. The 5 acres stretched out before me, a gentle slope of land dotted with gnarled oak trees. This was a place of memories, where my father had walked with Arthur, where my mother had laid out picnic blankets. This was the place Arthur had dreamed of building a small house. Just for us, Ilara, he'd said, a place to watch the world go by. I walked the land, my sensible shoes crunching on the dry soil, feeling more alive than I had in weeks. The land wasn't barren. It was teeming with hardy wildflowers and circling hawks. It felt like home. I made my way to the highest point, a small flat-topped hill, and sat on a sun-warmed slab of rock. In the distance, just as Brenda had hinted, a massive construction project was underway. Cranes stood like metallic dinosaurs against the skyline, a city of glass and steel being born from the fields. It was an unavoidable, looming presence. As I sat there, a dusty pickup truck rattled up the access road. An old man in overalls got out. "Afternoon, ma'am," he said, tipping his cap. "This is the old Vance property, isn't it? I'm Bill Harkin. Knew your father." We talked for a while, a welcome conversation with someone who saw this land as a place with a soul. "Funny you should show up today," Bill said, squinting toward the distant construction. "Big news broke this morning. That there is the new global headquarters for Nexus Innovations, giant tech company, calling it the Silicon Valley of the Midwest." He chuckled. "Never thought I'd hear geologists talking about Oakley County." He kicked at a loose stone with the toe of his boot. It had a faint, silvery blue vein running through it. The ground was littered with them. "There's a rumor," Bill said, his voice dropping. "The surveyors found something rare in the ground, a mineral called helionite, game changer for battery technology. Biggest deposit they found is right under this whole ridge." He stamped his foot. "Right here, on your land." I stared at him, my mind reeling. Helionite, Nexus. The pieces were clicking into place with dizzying speed. My children had given me a gold mine. "That's not all," Bill said, his expression hardening slightly. "I should tell you. Had some fellas out here last week trying to get onto your property. Said they were county surveyors, but they didn't have any credentials. Drove a fancy city car. I ran 'em off." "You did?" I asked, alarmed. "Yup," he said proudly. "Told them this was private property, and they'd best come back with a warrant. One of 'em dropped this when he was leaving in a hurry." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a crisp, expensive business card. He handed it to me. My blood ran cold as I read the name embossed in gold lettering. It wasn't from Nexus Innovations. It wasn't a surveyor. It was from the high-end corporate law firm that represented my son's investment company. My son, Marcus, had sent men to survey my land before he'd even told me I was being put in a home. The business card felt like a block of ice in my hand. Marcus knew. Or, at the very least, he suspected. The forced gift of the deed, the rush to put me in a home, it wasn't just callousness. It was a calculated strategy to isolate me from an asset he was already investigating. The betrayal was deeper and more sinister than I could have ever imagined. The drive home was a blur of cold fury and newfound resolve. That night, I didn't just research Nexus and Helionite, I researched my son's law firm. Their specialty was corporate real estate acquisition. He wasn't just a financial planner, he was a shark. My first call the next morning was to David Chen, a brilliant former student of mine who was now one of the best property rights attorneys in the state. "Mrs. Vance?" David's voice was warm with surprise. "Is everything all right?" "Everything has changed, David," I said, my voice steady and clear. "I need your help, and I'm about to become your most important client." In his polished downtown office, I laid out everything. The deed, the rock with the blue vein, Marcus's lawyer's business card, and Arthur's mysterious key. I told him about the nursing home, the estate sale, and the conversation with Bill Harkin. I watched his expression shift from sympathy to shock, and finally to a fierce, focused excitement. After 20 minutes of furious typing, he turned to me, his eyes wide. "Alara, it's all true. Your 5 acres aren't just on the Helionite deposit. According to this survey, it is the deposit. The most concentrated, accessible part of the vein is right under that hill. You don't just have a valuable piece of land, you have a $1 trillion company over a barrel." He laid out a strategy. Get our own survey, form a corporation, and wait for Nexus to come to us. And when they do, he grinned, we won't be talking about selling, we'll be talking about royalties, a stake in the entire operation. A dizzying sense of vertigo washed over me. I was no longer a victim. I was a player. "There's one more thing," I said, my voice firm. "I want to create a foundation, the Arthur Vance Foundation for Second Chances, to help people who have been discarded, people the world has deemed worthless. This windfall would not be a tool for spite. It would be a continuation of my life's work." David's professional excitement softened into deep respect. "We can start drafting the charter immediately," he said. He took the deed to make a copy and paused, his brow furrowed as he read the fine print on the transfer document Marcus and Chloe had signed. "Alara, there's a problem," he said slowly, his face grim. "A serious one." My heart sank. "What is it?" "Your children were clever," he said, pointing to a single paragraph. "They included a special provision in the transfer, a right of first refusal clause. They probably thought it was a meaningless bit of legal boilerplate to show they were being thorough." "What does it mean?" I asked, a sense of dread creeping back in. David looked at me, his expression grave. "It means if you ever receive an offer to sell the land, you are legally obligated to first offer it to them for the same price. And the way they've worded this, a shrewd lawyer could argue it applies to any major transaction, even a lease. But that's not the worst part. The clause specifies the price will be based on the property's appraised fair market value at the time of the original transfer. Alara, they've built a legal trap. They can force you to sell them the billion-dollar property for what it was worth last week, $4,500. The legal trap my children had set sent a chill down my spine. The right of first refusal clause was a time bomb, and the clock was ticking. David assured me it was a legal long shot for them, an aggressive interpretation, but the threat was real. It could tie us up in court for years, delaying any deal with Nexus. For now, he advised, we proceed as planned. Let them make the first move. The estate sale was a muted horror. I stayed with a neighbor, unable to watch strangers carry my life away. Marcus texted that evening. Sale successful. Cleared over $80,000 after fees, a great result. The message was so obliviously triumphant, it made me sick. The day I was scheduled to move into Golden Meadows, a black town car from Nexus Innovations pulled into my driveway. Two sharp-suited lawyers, Catherine Shaw and Mr. Fields, made me a lowball offer of $500,000 for the land. I was calmly rejecting it when Chloe's white SUV pulled up, blocking them in. "Mom, what's going on? I told you to be ready at 10, she said, her eyes immediately sizing up the expensive suits and luxury car. "Chloe, these are business associates," I said smoothly. "They're here to discuss the Oakley property." Chloe scoffed. "The dirt patch? What about it?" Just then, as planned, my lawyer David Chen arrived. He walked past the Nexus team and addressed only me. "Alara, the preliminary results from our geological survey came in. It's even better than we hoped." He then turned to the Nexus lawyers, his expression shifting to steel. "Let me save you some time. My client, Mrs. Vance, is fully aware of the Helionite deposit, and your offer is insulting." He laid out our terms, a 9-figure signing bonus and a percentage of gross revenue. The silence that followed was stunning. Chloe's jaw had gone slack, her mind struggling to process the words. 9 figures? She whispered. $100 million? "We expect your proposal by the end of the week," David said to the routed Mixes team. "Now, if you'll excuse us, Mrs. Vance has a move to cancel." He guided me back inside as Chloe stood frozen on the lawn, staring at my front door. I walked to the phone and formally canceled my reservation at Golden Meadows, the words tasting like victory. I had just hung up when the knock came on the door. It was Chloe, her face a chaotic mess of shock and dawning horror. I opened a door to let her in. She stumbled into the living room, her eyes wild. $100 million? Mom, is this real?" "Very real, Chloe," I said calmly. "But that money," she stammered, "it belongs to the family." "It belongs to the person on the deed," I corrected her. "A gift, I believe you called it." Just then, her phone buzzed with a message. She glanced at it, and a new, more calculating expression flickered across her face. She quickly tried to hide the screen, but not before I saw the sender, Marcus. The message was short and brutal. "Stall her. Do not let her sign anything. I have a plan to invoke the clause." She looked up at me, a false, desperate smile plastered on her face, and I knew the real battle was just beginning. She wasn't here to apologize. She was here to run interference for her brother's legal attack. Chloe's mask was back on, but now I could see the cracks. She was no longer just a greedy daughter. She was an unwilling co-conspirator sent by her brother to obstruct my path to freedom. "Mom," she began, her voice taking on a syrupy, concerned tone. "This is all happening so fast. You shouldn't rush into anything. These corporate people, they'll take advantage of you. You need family to protect you. You need Marcus." It was a pathetic, transparent performance.
The only people who have tried to take advantage of me recently are you and your brother, I said, my voice cold. I gestured to the phone in her hand. And it seems you're still trying. Her face flushed, caught in the lie. I don't know what you mean. I mean the text message from your brother, Chloe, the one telling you to stall me while he prepares to sue me. The color drained from her cheeks. The game was up. Her shoulders slumped in defeat. It was in that moment her phone rang, the caller ID flashing Marcus. She stared at it, then at me, her eyes pleading. I simply nodded. She put it on speaker. Chloe, what's the status? Marcus's voice was sharp, panicked. Did you stop her from talking to them? Our lawyer is filing the injunction first thing in the morning. We're going to lock that property down. It's too late, Marcus, Chloe said, her voice a whisper. There was a pause. What do you mean it's too late? Put her on the phone. Chloe handed me the phone. Hello, Marcus, I said calmly. What have you done? He hissed. You have no idea what you're dealing with. We had a legal right. That's our inheritance. Your inheritance was this house, which you sold from under me, I shot back, a lifetime of frustration finally boiling over. You chose a quick payout over your own mother. You put a legal trap in a document you called a gift. That isn't family, Marcus. That's theft. The consequences of that decision are yours to live with. I ended the call, cutting off his sputtering rage. I handed the phone back to Chloe, who was staring at me with genuine fear. She was looking at a stranger, a woman with a power she had never imagined. So, what now? She asked, her voice small. Now, I said, walking to my front door, I cancel the estate sale, I reclaim my home, and I prepare for the fight your brother is so determined to have. Her eyes filled with tears, real tears of loss this time. Mom, please, we made a terrible mistake. A mistake is forgetting to pick up milk, Chloe, I said, my voice softening with a deep, aching pity. What you did was a deliberate choice. You both have a lot to think about. I opened the door for her. As she walked to her car, she looked back at the house with the eyes of an exile. The unraveling was just beginning. The next day, just as Marcus had threatened, the official notice arrived by a courier. An injunction filed by Marcus and Chloe Vance against Alara Vance to enforce their right of first refusal and block any transaction with Nexus Innovations. They were suing me, their own mother, for the right to buy a $1 billion property for $4,500. I was reading the legal jargon, a cold knot forming in my stomach, when David Chen called. His voice was grim, but it wasn't about the lawsuit. Ilara, I was digging into the history of the Oakley deed, trying to find a loophole. I found something else, something your husband did years ago. There's another document on file with the county, a deed of trust. Ilara, the land isn't just in your name. Arthur set it up so that on your 80th birthday, a second party is automatically granted co-ownership with full veto power over any sale. A second party? I asked, confused. Who? David paused. Your son, Marcus.
The revelation hit me like a physical blow. A deed of trust. Marcus, my son, was set to become co-owner of the land on my 80th birthday, which was now just 3 months away. Arthur must have done it years ago, a well-intentioned but now catastrophic attempt to secure his son's future. Marcus didn't even know. He was suing me for a pittance, completely unaware that if he just waited a few months, he would co-own a fortune. His own greed was about to cost him everything. This changed the entire game. The injunction was a temporary problem.
The deed of trust was a potential disaster. If Marcus found out, he would drop the lawsuit, wait until my birthday, and then, as co-owner, he could sabotage any deal with Nexus until he got exactly what he wanted, likely half of everything, with no contribution to the foundation. "He can't find out about this, David," I said, my voice urgent. "We need to finalize the deal with Nexus before my birthday. We need to use his lawsuit against him." The strategy was brilliant in its simplicity. We would fight his injunction. We would drag the legal proceedings out, burying his lawyers in paperwork and depositions, keeping him completely focused on his worthless lawsuit. We would make him believe his only path to the land was through the courts, while behind the scenes, we raced to close the deal of a lifetime. It was a high-stakes gamble. The weeks that followed were a blur. While Marcus's legal team fought for pennies, David and the Nexus lawyers worked around the clock. The deal was finalized a month before my 80th birthday. It was staggering. A 99-year lease, a $50 million signing bonus, and a 4% royalty on all extracted minerals. The moment the wire transfer hit the foundation's new bank account, I wrote a check to buy back my own home and memories from the estate company. With my future secured, I began building my legacy. The Arthur Vance Foundation for Second Chances opened its doors, and our first act was to acquire Golden Meadows. We transformed it from a for-profit business into a non-profit haven for the elderly, where dignity was the only currency. My new office was the very suite they had chosen for me. During this time, my children's lives imploded. Marcus became a pariah in the financial world. Chloe's social life evaporated. They showed up at my door, desperate and broken, pleading for loans and forgiveness. I turned them away, not with anger, but with a quiet resolve. Their problems were of character, not of finance, and could not be solved with a check. My grandson Jake, however, became a regular visitor. He was my bridge to a future I wanted to be part of. One afternoon, he was helping me clear out an old roll-top desk of Arthur's that the estate sale team had missed. "What's this, Grandma?" he asked, pulling out an old, heavy camcorder and a box of tapes. Curious, we hooked it up to the television. The tapes were a visual history of our family, birthdays, holidays, vacations. Then, one tape flickered to life, and my breath caught in my throat. It was Arthur, standing on the hill in Oakley County, a teenage Marcus by his side. The date stamp on the screen was from 20 years ago. "This land holds our family's future, son," Arthur said on the tape, his voice clear as a bell. "Never sell it. It's a legacy, not a line item." The camera then panned down to something Arthur was holding, a geological map. He was pointing to a highlighted section right under the hill. "Early surveys show something special here," Arthur said. "Could be nothing, could be everything." The camera then zoomed in on Marcus's face. He was staring at the map, his eyes wide with a calculating understanding that was chilling to see, even 2 decades later. It was the smoking gun. Marcus hadn't just suspected the land was valuable last month. He had known about the possibility of a mineral deposit for 20 years. His entire deception, the gift, the nursing home, it was all part of a long, patient, predatory game. And I had it all on tape. The videotape changed everything. It was no longer a case of my word against theirs. It was irrefutable proof of long-term, premeditated fraud. Marcus hadn't just been greedy, He had been playing a predatory game for 2 decades, waiting for the right moment to seize an asset he knew could be immensely valuable. The right of first refusal clause wasn't a clever afterthought. It was a carefully laid snare. David Chen was ecstatic. "This is it, Ilara," he said, his voice buzzing with energy. "This isn't just a defense against their lawsuit. It's grounds for a countersuit for fraud and attempted elder abuse. We can destroy them." But I didn't want to destroy them. I just wanted them to face the truth. We arranged a final meeting, not in a lawyer's office, but in my living room, my home, my turf. Marcus and Chloe arrived, looking haggard but still defiant, their lawyers in tow. They assumed I was there to capitulate, to offer them a settlement to make the lawsuit go away. "Let's get this over with," Marcus's lawyer began. "Our clients are prepared to accept a cash settlement of $20 million in exchange for dropping the injunction and waiving their first refusal rights." I didn't say a word. I simply turned to the large television in my living room and pressed play. The grainy footage flickered to life. The room fell silent as they watched a younger Arthur talk about legacy, as they saw the geological map, as the camera zoomed in on a teenage Marcus's calculating eyes. I watched my children's faces as the tape played. Chloe's jaw went slack with disbelief, her eyes darting toward her brother. Marcus turned a ghastly shade of white. The confident mask of the corporate raider dissolved into the panicked face of a boy caught in an unforgivable lie. When the tape ended, the silence in the room was absolute. "As you can see," David said calmly to the opposing lawyers, "your client has been acting in bad faith for 20 years. We have the proof to not only have your frivolous lawsuit dismissed with prejudice, but to pursue criminal charges for fraud. So here is our counteroffer. You will drop this lawsuit immediately. You will sign a document formally relinquishing any and all current or future claims to the Oakley property or any of Mrs. Vance's assets. In return, the existence of this tape will remain between us." Their lawyers, seeing their case evaporate into a potential criminal nightmare, immediately advised them to accept. Within an hour, it was over. They signed the documents, their hands shaking, their gazes fixed on the floor. As they were leaving, I spoke to them one last time. "The trust Arthur set up for you, Marcus, the one that would have made you co-owner on your birthday next week, I've had it legally dissolved. Your fraud invalidated the spirit of the gift." The final, brutal truth landed. He had been a week away from a legitimate claim to a fortune, but his own impatient, predatory greed had cost him everything. They left without another word. I never saw them again. My true inheritance wasn't the money. It was the freedom from their poison. My life blossomed. The foundation became a beacon of hope, and my relationship with my grandson Jake became the cornerstone of my new family. I left him a trust, but the real legacy I gave him was the lesson I had learned, that value is not measured in dollars, but in dignity, integrity, and the second chances we offer to others. The deed to the land hangs in my office, a reminder that sometimes a worthless gift can give you back the world. They thought they were writing my final chapter, but they only gave me the freedom to write a brand new book, and this one had a very happy ending.